The Prime Minister meeting the Indian diaspora. Let's just take a look.
प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी का और भारतीय जनसमुदाय को संबोधित भी करेंगे प्रधानमंत्री इस दौरे पर एक बेहद अहम यात्रा।
बिल्कुल देखिए अपनी जो 3 देशों की यात्रा के आखिरी पड़ाव पर प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी कुछ देर पहले ही ऑस्ट्रेलिया पहुंचे हैं। अभी एयरपोर्ट के बाद वो भी अपने होटल पहुंचे हैं और काफी देर रात का वक्त है। बावजूद इसके आप देखिए कितनी बड़ी संख्या में भारतीय समुदाय के लोग वहां पहुंचे हैं। हाथों में तिरंगा लिए, तस्वीरें लिए प्रधानमंत्री मोदी की, बैनर तख्तियां लिए और एक मोदी के नारों से सिडनी का शांग्रीला होटल का ये अहाता गूंज रहा है इस वक्त। और ठीक इसी तरह हम जानते हैं कि भारतवंशी पीएम मोदी का जहां भी वो जाते हैं वो इस्तकबाल करते हैं, स्वागत करते हैं।
Over there in Sydney, Australia, he's reached over there after flying in from Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea. This is an important visit for the Prime Minister. India and Australia, very close strategic partners. Let's go straight across to NDTV's Megha, who's got more with us. Megha, this is just one part of the big diaspora show, isn't it? Tomorrow is going to be a huge day for the diaspora. Tell us a little bit about what we're seeing.
Yes, of course, Vishnu, you're correct. Tomorrow is going to be the biggest highlight as far as this Australian leg of Prime Minister's three-nation tour is concerned. This event tomorrow, which will be attended by Prime Minister along with the Australian Prime Minister, Mr. Albanese, is going to be a show of the cultural closeness between the two countries, between Australia and India. It's been hosted by the Indian Australian Diaspora Foundation. This, of course, is going to be, it's scheduled for the evening tomorrow, close to about 2 hours, I think. Both the leaders are going to be there at the venue. They're all set to welcome Prime Minister. It's a grand community event, is what we've been told. And it's basically a cultural event that is in collaboration with the Indian diaspora, just to tell the Prime Minister that he is very warmly welcomed by the Indian diaspora there, and the closeness between the Indian and the Australian society is something that they would attempt to showcase there tomorrow. Now, what is the list of functions, events that have been planned for tomorrow? That we are not aware yet. But you are seeing, of course, a glimpse of the popularity that Prime Minister, enjoys not only in other countries but in Australia as well. I mean, we've seen such shots come in to us from US, from Germany, from France, from many big countries. Now these similar visuals that you are seeing, Prime Minister being greeted, people waiting outside the airport in Sydney to welcome the Indian Prime Minister, catch a glimpse of him. And tomorrow, of course, in this big event, they will be showcasing their love, their warmth, and the respect that he enjoys in the country down south.
All right, thanks very much for being with us. So tomorrow is going to be a very important day. There'll be important bilateral meetings which take place. Remember, Sydney is 4.5 hours ahead of us. So it's about 9:30 p.m. Sydney time at the moment, just a little bit before that. So the Prime Minister flying in over there from Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea. Tomorrow there'll be bilateral talks which will take place. He'll be meeting business leaders in Australia as well. And then, of course, this mega event which should be starting at about 1 p.m. and we'll be broadcasting that live of the Prime Minister with the Indian diaspora. His Australian counterpart, Prime Minister Albanese, will also be over there as the Modi show, as we've come to see over the last so many years, gets underway once again. So that's going to be tomorrow. He's still, I think, at the airport, but he is headed out now. This is a very important visit. In fact, if the Prime Minister choosing to go ahead with this part of the visit, even though the Quad Summit, which was supposed to be held in Australia, was ultimately cancelled because of the inability of the US President Joe Biden to attend. So as far as that Quad part of things was concerned, didn't happen in Australia. They did meet in Japan for the during the time of the G7 meet a few days back, and they did hold that meeting there. But the Prime Minister said, no, I've given a commitment. I'm going to be in Australia. And so, he's greeted as he is pretty much all over the world by very enthusiastic Indians in Australia. All right, lots of children over there, lots of family members. Everybody wants to catch a glimpse of Narendra Modi in Australia. And he reaches out to children quite often. And as you can see, him doing that over there as well. But I think the importance of this visit is this huge friendship of India and Australia. I think it's important to know that strategic partnership between India and Australia is far better than it was in the past. It's been a somewhat testy relationship. About 15-20 years back, there was a sense that Australia was wary of India's growing naval might in the Indian Ocean region. But now Australia are part of the Malabar series of naval exercises, which is absolutely key as far as Indian strategic policy is concerned. So they exercise with us, the militaries host each other, the Indian Air Force flies to that region as well. So, all of this is absolutely important in terms of that strategic relationship, and he's got a personal equation, as he does with so many other leaders, but he certainly got one with Prime Minister Albanese of Australia, who was here recently, and he's met Prime Minister Modi just a few days back in Japan as well. But it's going to be another meeting tomorrow, and the Australian Prime Minister is going to be accompanying our Prime Minister for that big diaspora show when Prime Minister Modi speaks to Indians in Australia.